You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Prime Angus steaks and chops. We taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, of course, the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, likely be the best you've ever had as well. Hell, even those half-pound to 1-pound prime Wagyu burgers, clearly the best I've ever had. Folks, I don't get paid anything for saying this. They are just damn good. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. And you know what? Sometimes we have the kung fu applause. Sometimes we have no applause. And there it is. There's the kung fu applause. We love this, folks. It's because, actually, we don't love it. It's because when you watch those kung fu movies, right, you'll watch their mouth move, but you don't hear anything. And then after they allegedly get done saying something and the mouth stops moving, then you'll actually, I guess, hear what they were saying. So that is the kung fu applause. Here, let's press the applause. And there it is again. But this is the regular applause, right? So, listen, folks, it's live. Anything can happen. You know, 7 years ago when I started this show, by the way, this is our 7th year anniversary week, final show of that series. 7 years ago when I started this show, I used to get really pissed at anything that would actually go wrong. If anything went wrong, I would lose my stuff, if you know what I mean. And I would yell and scream and kick and scream like a little baby, if you know what I mean. Right? That kind of stuff is really not good for anybody. But then again, you know, what do you do? When you're a rookie at it, running your own program is one thing. But when I started off, I was one of 5 people on a show called The Franchise. And that was an ESPN show out of Southern California. Post-game Ducks, post-game Angels. Had a real big market share. There's about 10% market share. And so I was one of the 5 guys on that program. It was a funny story how the whole thing happened. And essentially, one of my good buddies asked me if I would be interested in, I don't know, joining a company with him. And he was an old quarterback in the NFL, and he was there for, I don't know, 12 years, 9 years as the Rams quarterback. I'd say the good Jim Everett, but he's the great Jim Everett because he is my buddy. And, of course, Jim always deserves a round of applause because if it wasn't for Jim, hell, I wouldn't be doing this in the first place. But Jim asked me to join a company with him, and I said, well, you know, what is it? And he said, well, it's a sports software type of company. I said, all right, that's fine. Tell me more. And so, of course, my question was, well, who's the lead investor for it? He said, well, I am. I said, all right, well, that kind of changes things. He said, why don't you come on down to Anaheim from Vegas and come meet the guys that are promoting the software on the radio show on KLAA, ESPN 830. That's out of Artie Moreno's Anaheim Stadium, where the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, of Orange County, the Orange Curtain of, I don't know, of the rock pile that they have in center field for the San Andreas Fault, and nonetheless of Earth. The longest name in sports. That's why I say that, folks. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I mean, that's kind of silly. But anyway, the reality is, Jim said, come on down, meet the guys, whatever. And Jim had his old coach, John Robinson, Big John Robinson, always a big round of applause for Big John. And so I said, okay, fine, I'll take a drive down. So they said, why don't you come on down to over to the stadium where we're going to record a segment for John for the next show. And I said, all right, well, I guess I could do that. So we went into the stadium and into the studio, into the ESPN studios, and they said, all right, well, just kind of sit here, and this is going to be about a 10-minute recording, and then you guys can leave. So, okay, fine, whatever. I've been in a radio station several times. My cousin was the top engineer for a big dance music station in Chicago, WBMX, Oak Park, Chicago. Anyway, so it happened that recording went okay, and then they said, why don't you come back tonight, and we're going to air it, and you could sit in on the show. I said, I looked at Jim. I'm like, all right, buddy, you're going to come with me if I go? He's like, I'm not going to go. Yes, you're going to go. I have all the photos and whatnot to prove it. Anyway, long story longer, so that night I went back, and it was a 10 o'clock show, or whatever. It was, I think it was in August of 2015, something like this. Anyway, so I went in there with Jim, and right when we walked in, hey, there's Rich, John, and Bob from the franchise. Of course, we always like to call them out. Bunch of good guys, right? We'll give them a little round of applause there. Then we're going to cut it short because we can. And they put a mic in front of me. They started pouring me shots right when I walked in. So I was like, all right, well, I guess it's going to be one of those nights. So they put the mic in front of me, and we had a chaotic night of havoc and mayhem. Because, look, there's no script. We just do what we do. So they did play the John Robinson segment, but they started talking about the software. But then the conversation went from, I don't know, normal to chaotic to who knows. It just got maddening. Anyway, it went so well. It was a lot of fun. The ratings were really high on that show. Mind you, they have about a 10% market share out of Southern California, all the way down into Mexico. The signal stretched across the Mexican border. And it was a 50,000 watt blowtorch. For all you in the radio business, you know what I'm saying. That is a very large signal. And so anyway, what we ended up doing was having a discussion quickly afterwards. I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to go home. And that would be down at Jim's place down in South Orange County. And he said, well, why don't you come back again tomorrow? I'm like, all right, well, I'm still in town. We could do that. So I came back, and the chaos ensued again. And so it was more madness. And they said after that show, they said, hey, why don't you come back again tomorrow? I'm like, no, man, I can't do that. I got to get back to Vegas. And they said, all right, well, why don't you just call in, and we'll have Daniel, our producer, put you through to the show so you could participate like you did the last couple of nights. I said, well, I guess so. I could do that. All right, so I did that. And again, the chaos continued. And so it was really turning out to be a big hit. And then there was almost like a natural banter with this guy from Long Beach, and he went by the name of Long Beach Lenny. And so it was kind of like Vegas and Long Beach, squaring off head to head, throwing blows and stuff like that. Anyway, it was fun, so we were a really cool sideshow. But after about a week of this, Rich, who was the head guy for the franchise, he said, all right, look, this guy, his name is Sal. He lives in Vegas. He's from Chicago. His family's from Sicily. He's got to be a bookie. So anyway, so they started calling me Sal the Bookmaker. As a matter of fact, Sal the Bookmaker on that show was a really big hit. People were looking forward to my calling in and being a part of the show on a regular basis, and I ended up having a Vegas report. But if you even if you go to salthebookmaker.com or just Google Sal the Bookmaker, it will take you right to this show's page, the Sports Circus. So it was a lot of fun, but I was one of 5 guys on that show, essentially just a sideshow. But I brought it in a lot of my friends. There were a lot of the big guests that have come onto the show. And it turned out that I did a lot of fun things for those guys and for Jim's software company. And I took John Robinson and his other good buddy, Tom Flores. They were on the advisory board for this software company, to be nameless. And so since I was the chief operating officer and chief financial officer for the company, I moved Big John and Tom Flores into boards of director seats. So they went from an advisory board to the board of directors. I mean, look, you've got 2 guys each with, at that time, 50 years of football knowledge on an advisory board when they needed to be in a more decision-making position. So I moved them into the board of directors, and we got them each a little bit of equity in the company. So, I mean, my background outside of sports, when I couldn't play baseball anymore, I had to go back to school. So I went back to school for a decade to learn a bunch of stuff. Went to a good community college in Orange County, went to Saddleback College, transferred to Purdue University. That's why you always see Purdue stuff, and I always show it on television for everybody that's watching, by the way. Thanks for joining us on TV and radio. And so after that, I was going to go to law school right out the gate, but I actually had a chance to go to the number one business program at that time in the world, which was Duke University. They had the number one international business program in the world. Yes! So I had the great fortune to attend that, and I learned how to close the $1 billion deal there, and then I went to law school afterwards. But end of day, I learned how to build businesses, and Jim and I had talked about doing something in the future, and here I ended up working with his company, and it's because of Jim Everett that I actually got into this. But when after a year and a half with the franchise thereabouts, I said, you know what? I think I could do this on my own. And I'm going to build a business model around it. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to put a better tire on it. And that's what I did by building this show, the Sports Circus. And after about a 6-month contract that I had with Fox 1340 and the local broadcasting company here in NBC Sports, I went out and did my own thing, and it got bigger and crazier. And we went from just radio and sports to radio and television and sports and entertainment and business and politics. It's a regular news show at this time, yet it still carries the name The Sports Circus. And that is the brand that was built, and that's the story. Sorry to bore you to tears, but it's actually a cool story when everybody said, oh, you can't do it, you're not any good. No! Well, guess what? We actually did it. I did it. I put together a winning team, and here we are today, 2,000 hours later, and this is still a lot of fun. Folks, don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus. We're going to talk a little bit of hockey in the next segment. Back in a few.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC Sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You could get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Al Bubba Baker, quarterback breaker and the rib maker.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thanks, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. And a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in to everybody that has supported us for so many years that, well, sometimes they like to play us, sometimes they don't. I don't know. Either way, a big thank you to our friends that played us for years and years over in sunny Southern California on 106.5 FM, 102.3 FM, and 1050 AM. That's our NBC News and CNBC affiliates friends over there covering all the way from the Inland Empire, wow, all the way across the LA Basin. All right, we just want to thank them because for so many years they supported us, and I much appreciate it to Fred, Mark, and the balance of the guys over there. And look, even our friends Aaron over in Honolulu, thanks for doing everything you can for the circus. Also featuring us on ESPN 1420 in Honolulu as well. Of course, they always get a substantial round of applause, but we'll give them a mini applause right now. I mean, look, folks, we like to thank anybody that has had a hand in doing anything for us here on the circus. This is our 7-year anniversary series, final show for this series. And look, we've done thousands of hours of these, and this is a lot of fun. But I always like to acknowledge anybody that's had a hand in this. And of course, right here in Las Vegas, we started off on Fox Sports 1340, went over to NBC Sports 920 The Game, KSHP. Also, we've been with KIOF, KJPT Jackpot Radio currently, right here in Las Vegas. The list goes on and on. KQQY right here in Las Vegas as well. And a big hello to our friends that had supported us over in Lubbock, Texas, and that's KTXT, and that would be for Texas Tech University, for the Red Raider Radio. And also want to acknowledge our friends over in Natchez, Mississippi and Faraday, Louisiana. That's Jim Bob and the boys over there at, what was it? It was, I think it was 105.7 FM. I know it was the Gator over there, right on the Mississippi River, right on that Mississippi-Louisiana line. Thanks for everybody over there giving us plenty of support. And we still got a lot of people following us over there. And we still keep in touch with our good friend over there. Yes, and he goes by the name of Hillbilly Adams. Gotta like him. What a cool guy. You know, when I met this guy, he had a red, white, and blue hat on. It was like a flag on his cowboy hat. He had the boots to match it. And what a cool guy. Just some of the nicest people that I've ever met right down there in Natchez, Mississippi. Boy, you know, we certainly miss the food and the pralines and whatnot and the pecans. And boy, lots and lots of good stuff. And it's funny because Jim Bob told me one time, he goes, "You see that over there? What's that?" I said it's a pecan. He said, "You're right, it's a pecan. It's not a pecan. A lot of people call them pecans." And he said, "A pecan is something that is out by the outhouse, like an old Folgers can." Right? I guess that is a pecan. But anyway, lots of great stuff. And Jim Bob, we got to give him a little plug because he was the Redneck Adventures guy. You can check him out at redneckadventures.com. Of course, I don't get anything for saying this. We just like to acknowledge the people that were around us. And they did a real good job for us. Michael did a good job of producing the Sports Circus for us over there, even when things got a little bit dicey. but they still took care of us. And, of course, we always like to acknowledge them. And, of course, our friends over in Auburn, Alabama, they've been very good with us. WAUD, that's home of the world champion. I was going to say the world champion Atlanta Braves. That was the year previous. Anyway, they should have been the world champions this year, but got to tell you, that Texas Rangers team was on an absolute mission. And so was the Arizona Diamondbacks. Boy, talk about a team loaded with good young talent. Man, that's some exciting baseball. You know, folks, of course, I'm going to digress like wild, but that World Series that was played this year, that was old-time baseball, taking the extra base, stretching a double into a triple. It was real. The baseball that I grew up playing, that I grew up admiring, as I have a special on George Brett that's carried on the Four Letter Network right now. It's cool, or on Major League Baseball. I get to watch this while I'm talking to you, and you know, I think about when I was a kid playing ball. I looked up to guys like George Brett and his brother Ken Brett. In fact, his brother Ken Brett was on my beloved White Sox. So you see that I'm a White Sox guy. I'm not a Cubs guy. Although I was born about a mile or two away from Wrigley Field, the Cubs lost me. I always complain about the Cubs because they crushed me when they dealt off Bruce Sutter to the St. Louis Cardinals. That was the end of it for me. And when I was a kid, I watched the Cub games when I came home from school, and then I turned on Channel 44, the old UHF channel, and I saw this fuzzy screen. I saw a baseball team play on the snowy channel. So if you remember those old rabbit ears on the TVs, that's how I started watching the White Sox when I was a little kid. I'm going to say a real little kid. And then the very first ball game I ever went to, my father took my sister, Annette, and myself to go see the White Sox play the Texas Rangers. And in fact, the White Sox won that game. We sat in the upper deck on the first base side. George Orta hit 2 home runs for the White Sox in a 9-4 victory. And of course, going to that first ball game, you never forget it. And here, this is, 50 years ago, but you just don't forget stuff like this, and it stays with you. And honestly, I didn't even play organized ball until I was 12 years old. I was a playground, I wouldn't say a playground legend, but I was really good on the playground with the painted box on the wall. And then we would use the basketball, where the basketball hoops are, we'd use the poles, that hold those basketball hoops up in the backboard. They were perfectly spaced apart, where actually we had our painted box kind of in between. So they were like our fair and foul, left field, right field. But I learned really playing one-on-one there. But my uncle played in the Brooklyn Dodgers organization. He was the first left-handed, right-handed pitcher, right? Good old Uncle John, but we always call him Uncle Bud. Boy, he was a tough guy. And then my dad's cousin, he was a scout for the White Sox after his playing career, so my second cousin, he was a 10-year all-star catcher with the Boston Braves back in the 1940s. His name was Phil Macy. Yeah. So I was the guy in between. We had a couple of guys in the system in different clubs, one that was in the Cubs organization, and I played in a different organization to be nameless, and then in Mexico. And then I have 2 cousins currently playing, which I won't tell you the teams, but one plays first base for a particular team. Another one is in the starting rotation for another big league team. So it was just in the family. It is what it is. And I'll give you a hint. My one cousin, actually, is kind of, so it's my dad's sister's nephew, whatever. It's still a cousin. It is what it is. Anyway, so he threw a no-hitter not too terribly long ago. I won't tell you who he is, but that is family, sort of. But anyway, it runs in the family. And I have to say that, for me, not being able to play ball at a very young age, I mean, look, there's only 2 reasons you can't play ball, folks, or play your favorite sport as a professional. Baseball, football, basketball, hockey, tennis, whatever. It's either A, you're not good enough, or B, you're injured. That's it. There are no other reasons. It's not because of this or because of that. Those people always speak from the dissent. Well, basically saying, well, I couldn't play because of this. No, either you're not good enough or you're injured. In my case, I was injured. I came out of high school throwing 97 miles an hour as a left-handed pitcher. I never threw anything straight my whole career. I saw a scouting report on myself with one club, and the scouting report was what? It said, take cover. Because, I knew I was going to throw it over the plate. It's just that when I threw the ball, my middle finger came off the ball first. So the rotation from a lefty, it was that counterclockwise sort of rotation. So it tailed into the left-handed hitters away from the righties. And for me to throw the ball straight, believe it or not, I actually had to throw a slider. That's the only way I could throw the ball straight and knock the rotation back to some kind of normalcy. And of course, a slider really moves about 6 inches, and that's about it, really. A real slider. But the one thing I didn't do is I didn't tweak my elbow into that Tommy John setup. There's a lot of people that get injured with that because they either A, throw way too hard, they throw across their body. And what I mean by that, folks, is if you watch a pitcher, I don't care whether they're lefty or righty, and you see them fall off the hill, well, chances are the reason they fall off the hill is because they have their pivot foot and then they have a plant foot. Okay, their pivot foot is the one, as a lefty, that would be my left leg. Okay, so that would be where I'm pivoting from. And God, I hate that word because everyone uses it in business. It's overused. But anyway, we'll just call it our stable foot, right? Anyway, so that one is basically your stabilizer. But the one that comes down when you follow through, where you're planting down after you throw the ball, well, that one needs to be at least even with home plate. And if it's not even with home plate, it needs to be on the opposite side of home plate. So you're throwing the ball with your body instead of as all arm. When you're throwing across your body, you tend to fall off the hill. So when you fall off the hill, you're throwing mostly arm and you're damaging your arm. Now imagine doing that and throwing a slider, which is the worst possible pitch you can throw as a pitcher as far as your elbow goes. So people say, well, I got to have that Tommy John thing. Well, the Tommy John thing is really your ulnar nerve. It's that cubital tunnel thing, so the funny bone, right? So everyone has that situation, and the funny bone, when you're tweaking your elbow, tweaking your wrist, and just practice doing that, you'll see what I'm talking about. If you tweak your wrist, you'll feel your funny bone moving. Well, that's how it gets damaged. So it gets compromised by moving. So anyway, folks, I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't play anymore because I actually tore a rotor cuff, so I got into this. But this is a lot of fun, and hopefully you learn a little something about pitching. But I am a White Sox guy. I cannot stomach the Cubs, and now you know why. They trade all their great players away historically. It is what it is, folks. I promise we will talk hockey in the next segment. Hope you're having fun. Back on the 7-year anniversary series show on Sports Circus in just a moment. I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure you check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are podcasts, which can be found on all podcast platforms, whether it's Apple or iHeart or Spotify or Pandora, Google, Amazon, Audible. We're on all of those, folks. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. And we have a lot of partners that have been with us for a very long time. In fact, some since the very beginning, like the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Yeah. Listen, folks, it's live. It is what it is. All right. Welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast, and all the other 206 stations that are carrying the circus, which that's a whole nother discussion in itself. We can't remember all the callers, so we just don't call them out. Of course, all those ones that have worked with us over the last 7 years, we certainly want to thank up in New York and Buffalo and Boston and Miami and Chicago and Atlanta, and, well, we're still there as well, and Dallas and Denver and Phoenix, Seattle and Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, all of those. Every time I say San Diego, I always think of the San Diego Chargers when they used to call out a touchdown and say, "Touchdown, San Diego," which is very exciting to me. But now the Chargers, of course, are back in Los Angeles. But never mind about that. That's where they started off. So welcome into everybody. Also on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Oceanic, and WOW Cable affiliates, plus Hotel TV in over 600,000 rooms from coast to coast. All the Nielsen rated markets, folks, you can't get away from us. All right, so I did promise to talk a little bit of hockey. And look, folks, first things first, you got to understand if you're a fan, you know what fan actually stands for? Fanatic. Right, if you're a fan of pick your favorite sport, look, I'm a fan of hockey, baseball, basketball, football, whatever. I'm a fan of all this, even pickleball. Gotta love pickleball. But I'm a fan of all this, and sometimes when you're close to it, like me, I'm a White Sox guy, so I get bent out of shape when I see the Cubs on television, and I always root against them. And when I see players go from this team to that team, I mean, I blew up a trade between a team that I did not want to go to basically stay where I was. I didn't care about the money and whatnot. It was just a principle. I just had no interest in it because I did not and refused to wear that jersey. But you got to remember, folks, it's business. In most of the situation, it's business. That's it. These guys, these players are trying to make a living. They're trying to keep the money coming in, whatever. They have families. Some of them have families. Some don't. Some really don't make a bunch of money in the grand scheme of things. Their agents take a lot of money. And some guys just love to play the game. That's it. Doesn't matter whether you play for the team you're with for 16 years or you go to, the enemy. Well, you have to ask yourself, why would they do it? It's because they love the game. And here, case in point, you look at Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, a superstar in the National Hockey League, 16 years with the Chicago Blackhawks. Of course, a nice round of applause. Yes! Of course, he gets the super applause with the Chicago Blackhawks, 3 Stanley Cups, League MVP, Series MVP, All-Star, many, many, many years. I mean, a lock for the Hall of Fame. Arguably the best U.S.-born player to ever play hockey. And now, Patrick Kane has made a change. Now, you got to realize, first of all, he goes to New York from Chicago. Chicago dealt him off because they're rebuilding. They sent him off to New York Rangers, another Original Six team, right? If you don't know the Original Six teams, you better look them up. So he goes from the Blackhawks and the best uniform in all of sports with that Indian head all the way over to New York to wearing the Rangers uniform, which is also a very nice one. And so he's injured. He has this hip problem. And the hip problem is a really bad situation because it really makes it so he's kind of playing on one leg and still scoring a lot of goals and a lot of points, but the guy's playing in a lot of pain. And so now, look, Patrick Kane makes a business decision. He's like, look, I still want to play this game. I'm going to go ahead and go through this rehab thing. I'm going to do the unthinkable and have my hip worked on. It's like a hip bone shaving situation, but I'm going to go have that worked on. I'm going to come back. I'm going to rehab. Look, I'm staying in Toronto is what he says. Essentially, his family is there. His young child is there. And look, the guy just wants to play. And this is a very similar path that Chris Chelios did with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, Chris originally played for the Montreal Canadiens. Then he went to the Blackhawks, was a superstar there, and then he does the unthinkable and goes to play for who? Yes, he goes to play for the Detroit Red Wings. And just remember, everybody in Chicago is saying in the seats, Detroit sucks! Detroit sucks! That's right. Detroit sucks! Well, see, the reality is, folks, there is the unbelievable rival between the Blackhawks and Red Wings. And this has gone on for decades and decades and decades. You'll hear that chant. Whenever you hear that dun, 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 and then the whole crowd will chant what they just said, they'll do that even if they're not playing the Wings. It doesn't matter. It's sports' most feared rivalry out of all of them. It's not the Chiefs and the Raiders. It's not Ohio State and Michigan. No, it's not the Yankees and Red Sox. It is the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. And the fights in the seats are just maddening to imagine. But Patrick Kane actually spelled it out a little bit, and good for him. And here's a nice little interview clip that I want to play for you, and this is courtesy of the 4-Letter Network. Let's see if we can get the audio here. Here we go.
Patrick, you basically won all there is to win in this league. Multiple Stanley Cups.
Did he score? The Hawks have won the Stanley Cup! Yes!
MVP, playoff MVP, scoring title.
A highlight reel goal! That's 400 for Patrick Kane!
By all accounts, this surgery and rehab wasn't easy, so why'd you put yourself through it to come back?
A little bit of a sour taste in my mouth after last year. I think it's one thing when you're maybe retiring because of, your age or something like that, but this was more of an injury. Like, it's just kind of one part of my body that didn't feel good. If we could fix that up, I could still get back to an elite level and play at a high level. So that's the reasoning for coming back, is to get back to that high level, feel it again, and just be excited about, being one of the top players.
Do you still consider yourself one of the top players in this league?
I mean, yeah, when I'm feeling healthy and feeling good, yeah, of course. The last year, I don't think I was, but even before that, I was still injured and put up 92 points in a season. So it's like, yeah, I feel like I could get back to that level and even better than you were in the past.
How would you describe the pain you were feeling in your hip the last couple of years?
Anytime I would take a hit on the right side of the hip, the joint would kind of compress and I would basically feel like bone. So your leg shuts down for 30 seconds or 45 seconds, just painful, right? So you're almost like playing the game not to get hit, which, you can't do it in this league. You're thinking about it every day. You're I don't want to say miserable, but it's just, you're always thinking about it.
As it was described to you, what are the risks of having this hip resurfacing surgery?
I think maybe the biggest risk was just the unknown factor. Not many guys have had the surgery, so you don't really know too much about it. You hear about the success of resurfacing in the NHL. You're thinking, maybe should I have done that? Should I not have done that? But I'm really optimistic about the process. Yeah, hopefully be a pioneer in that way, and try to play for a long time here.
You played 16 years in Chicago. You're a legend in Chicago. And now you're playing for their biggest historical rival. Yeah, what's that like?
Just following Chelios, I guess. I don't really view it as I'm betraying the Hawks organization or anything like that. It's just more of a great opportunity for me to come here and play.
You've said that you wanted to play in a city where hockey's really important. Some guys shy away from that. Why do you seek it out?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I love hockey too.
Find the Kane left circle, shoots, he scores! Patrick Kane!
On off nights, put the baby to bed, and then I turn on hockey and watch hockey the rest of the night. You think about Detroit and Hockey Town and the history of the organization and the respect this organization has around the league. It's right at the top. So, that was definitely a factor as well.
You're 137 points away from surpassing Mike Modano, most points ever for an American-born player. Do you think you can do it?
Yeah.
A lot of speculation
he could do it.
Talked about
sure, why not?
where will he go? He chose the
Listen to
Detroit
this.
An amazing
Red Wings.
player, one of the
Your
guys
initial
I looked up
thoughts.
to.
Tonight's quick analysis
I think I can play
with Kevin Weeks.
Hockeytown, USA. And for Patrick Kane, a lot of fans might not necessarily recognize this. He's had a history. When Patrick Kane was 13 years old, his mom dropped him off in Detroit, Motown, dropped him off at 13 from Buffalo, their hometown, in search of playing at higher levels of competition. And in playing youth hockey in the Detroit area, he has some roots in Detroit. And dare I say, Pat Verbeek, among others, helped mentor him when he played in Detroit as a young kid, which then sprang him to then go and play in the London Knights. And of course, the rest is history with what he's done since. But
That's right. I mean, he has been one hell of a player, folks. But just remember, in the grand scheme of things, these words.
Detroit sucks! Detroit sucks! Detroit sucks! Detroit sucks! Detroit!
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. High pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people, but when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize, there's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. One ball, one strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said, I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. One ball, two strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about a congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products who don't do what they represent to do?
There's a smash to Squires. He's got it. 1, 2, 3, nothing across. We're going to the bottom of the 7th now to score. All tied up. Milwaukee 4, the White Sox 4. Hey! Everybody! All right, Nancy, let me hear you. White Sox.
Yes!
They don't win, it's a shame. Or it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. And it is. Holy cow. This crowd is wild.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Tom Brenneman. How do you not love that music?
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by the Sports Circus and our 7-year anniversary. Yes! Very exciting. So this is the last of a series of shows for the Sports Circus in this celebration of 7 years on air as a long-running show. Folks, that's pretty damn hard to do. Got to tell you, thousands of hours of shows, lots and lots of guests. Wait till you see who we got coming up. As a matter of fact, I guess I could tell you a little bit. Now, we are going to bring back Todd Kearns, rock star, from Slash, Miles Kennedy, and the Conspirators. So Todd's going to be back here on the show. Always a round of applause for Todd, good friend of the circus. And we're going to bring in, for all those people that know that 1979 incredible hit movie, The Warriors. Warriors come out to play. Remember that one, folks? Anyway, so we've got the head of the Baseball Furies on that one. And his name is Rob Ryder. And Rob he was a stuntman by trade, but he actually ended up playing the head of the Baseball Furies, had of course, the big fights with Swan, the gang leader. And also he was the head of the underground subway roller skate street gang called the Punks, and another great fight scene in the bathroom in that movie with, I don't know, probably 12 guys, whatnot, and it was just chaos. So a great movie from 1979. So Rob Ryder's going to be joining us here. Also coming up is the great Wayne Newton. Yes! So Wayne's going to be with us. Now, we don't have a confirmed date for that, but that is coming up. That's Mr. Las Vegas. Wayne, a living legend. Yeah, I didn't even know Wayne plays 13 instruments until I went to go see him on my birthday way back in May. But what a talented human and just a very, very nice guy as well. So Wayne's going to be joining us, and we have a couple of other surprises, and I don't want to share those just yet, but I can assure you when you hear who's coming on, wow, it's really exciting. As a matter of fact, we have two new analysts that are going to be coming onto the show on a regular basis. We're going to bring in fact, we have to announce it. You're going to see a press release come out for Al Bubba Baker, the quarterback breaker and barbecue maker. Yes! And, here's the funny thing. Actually, it's not so funny. Al Bubba Baker, and he always says it, Al Bubba Baker. Got to love that. So Al's one of those guys that played in the league, and he hit the magic threshold for sacks, quarterback sacks. To get into the Hall of Fame, it's 100 sacks, typically, to get in. But Al's got 131 sacks with the Detroit Lions, and for some reason, he has been snubbed by the Hall of Fame year after year after year. Unbelievable. And not only was he an incredible dominant force for the Lions after year, it's just that the fact that the Lions really weren't winning anything, and unfortunately he was sort of grouped in my opinion, on a losing team in a losing situation. Well, he didn't really do much for his team, and that's not true. And Al was just one hell of a player, and unfortunately he's not in the Hall where he should be. In the same light that Jim Jeffcoat, former Dallas Cowboys defensive superstar with 110 sacks and 2 Super Bowl championships. Now, Jim was on this show. In fact, we're going to bring Jim back on the show. But Jim's not in the Hall either with 110 sacks. That's unbelievable. All this stuff can happen. So we're going to be announcing Al Bubba Baker as one of our NFL insiders, and we have another guy that, well, I don't want to spill the beans on this one just yet, but he was one hell of a player too. So another guy is going to be joining us as a football analyst. So folks, what do you have to do if you want to build a winning team? If you want to be a winner, well, you have to surround yourself with winners, right? So that's what I've done with this show, whether it's World Series champions, whether it's Super Bowl champions, whether it's NHL Stanley Cup champions, NBA champions, All-Stars, Hall of Famers. That's what I've done to build this team. And let's face it, I mean, I don't know a bunch of stuff about some of these other sports, especially boxing. So I've got a 4-time WBC boxing champion as our regular boxing analyst. So that's Big Bronco Billy Wright. Of course, a nice round of applause for Billy, one of the largest humans I've ever known. And as a matter of fact, we even had Joe Cortez, the Hall of Fame referee for boxing. Joe was with us for a minute too. And look, again, surround yourself with winners because winners win. That's how you do it. So anyway, lots of good stuff coming up here on the circus. Now, going back to our last segment, talking about Patrick Kane and of course, his playing with the Detroit Red Wings. And, good for Pat. He has a chance to go extend his career. And look, this guy's got some mileage left in the tank, and I think he's got gas in the tank anyway to go more miles. Patrick Kane is one hell of a talent, and obviously the best American-born player that's ever really played. And that's a lot to say because he's going to pass Mike Modano in maybe one season or 1.5 season in total points scored. In the same light that Alex Ovechkin is going to pass Wayne Gretzky's scoring title. Nobody said it was possible. I said 6 years ago it was going to happen, and it's probably going to happen not this season, but maybe next season. So be it. But you know what? Speaking of hockey, there was somebody that had died recently. They got their neck slashed, and a skate came up, an errant skate came up, cut this guy's neck. The guy died. So the International Hockey Federation, according to NBC Sports, they are going to mandate a neck guard after the death of that particular player. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but here's the story as NBC Sports has it. They see the International Hockey Federation announced that it is making neck guards mandatory for all levels of competition in the tournaments it runs, including the Olympics. That'll be interesting. And men's and women's world championships. Now, the mandate would not apply to professional leagues. Yet, of course, the NHL players do play in the Olympics now, so that's going to be interesting. But including the NHL, which currently does not have any cut-proof safety requirements for players, any sort of mandate in the NHL would require an agreement between the league and the players' union, which have been discussing skate blade safety for years. I mean, in the same light, look, players never even wore helmets. Anyway, the IIHF's move comes after the death of American Adam Johnson, whose neck was cut by a skate blade during a game in England in late October. Johnson's death, he was only 29 years of age, is believed to be completely accidental. Yes, it was investigated. And of course, the on-ice tragedy had sparked significant debate about the sport needing more protection for the neck and the wrist and the legs too, right? So we think of those vital arteries that are in those places, right? The thing about the neck, you got the carotid artery, and then you've got all kinds of other places that are vulnerable, that are not really protected. So the exact date of the IIHF's neck guard mandate to go into effect is still to be determined based on the supply of neck guards available. So that's really the only holdup. And this is actually from the organization itself, from the IIHF. They say that they remain in close contact with their suppliers to ensure that they are able to respond to the current demand. Until the rule officially goes into effect, the IIHF continues to strongly recommend that neck laceration protection are worn by all players performing in competition. So now, before now, the IIHF initially had neck protection rules only for under 20 and under 18 years of age players, so neck guards were already automatically and mandatory in those tournaments like the World Juniors. But the organization that governs hockey around the world decided to widen the order based on the recommendation of its medical committee. So the English Ice Hockey Association, which governs the sport below the elite level where Johnson played, reacted to his death by requiring all players in England to wear neck guards beginning next year. And similarly to the IIHF, the mandate was immediate because of supplies. It's not because of anything else. It's just merely they couldn't really do it. Kind of an interesting point when you think about the protection of the neck in hockey, because it's been vulnerable, well, since the very beginning. And let's face it, hockey is a very, very dangerous sport. And at the end of the day, it's really the toughest sport to play. But you got to remember, you've got, number one, guys skating around at 20-odd miles an hour with deadly weapons on their feet. They're carrying a deadly weapon with their stick. They're hitting a puck over 100 miles an hour, which is a deadly weapon on top of it. And look, I mean, something bad is bound to happen. Then you got guys really trying to check each other up into the fifth row through the glass. And who knows what could happen there. Never mind, players getting paralyzed and all kinds of horrible accidents. But look, hockey is a man's game. It's not like football. And look, in basketball, they have real fights. I'm sorry. Well, I guess some basketball, if you know what I mean. So we got mistakes, right? But in hockey, we have real fights. In football, they have fights too, but not like hockey. Basketball, they have slap boxing fight. In baseball, they have real fights too. There's no padding or nothing out there. But hockey, look, I think as a former baseball player, is the hardest sport to play, but the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball coming in at 90 plus. These days, 100 plus. Clearly, you can fail 7 out of 10 times and be in the Hall of Fame. Baseball's clearly, hitting a ball is the hardest thing to do, but the hardest sport to play, the most physical and demanding, is clearly hockey. Now, I would say that soccer is very demanding, but it doesn't have the physical appeal or the physical rigor that hockey does. And so I have 100% respect for hockey players, so we kind of talk a lot of hockey in this show because, folks, if you think football players have a rough time, look, they play a little, and according to George Carlin, they rest a little. Right? So they play a little, they rest a little. And the same thing goes because they rest in between plays. They say they do the same thing in baseball. They play a little, they rest a little. Right? They have in between innings. In basketball, they play a little, they rest a little. And basketball is pretty demanding, but not nearly as demanding as soccer, and not nearly as demanding as football, and not nearly as demanding as hockey. So, sorry, basketball. You come into a distant fourth, almost in the same light as your popularity in today's game, because you have divisive players playing basketball that are not good for the game, and hockey has overtaken basketball for the third most popular sport in America, of course, with football, then baseball, then hockey, and then basketball. That's right, because basketball really doesn't have a lot of leadership, and then they have that one-and-done garbage. And you really don't have players that have basketball, really high basketball IQs. They haven't developed it in college. It's almost like they're on a 3-year backup time frame. And frankly, it's a little embarrassing for basketball for them to go about business the way they do. But that's my 2 cents. And thank you so much for being a part of the Sports Circus for the last 7 years. This is going to conclude our anniversary series. Not really even sure what the hell that means, but it's something I wanted to do because some people asked me if they could get some content other than just the regular sports, and the headlines and stuff. Tell us more about you and the show and stuff like that. So now you just got a heavy dose of it for several consecutive shows, and I hope it was entertaining to you because I really enjoyed talking about it. And make sure you come back for more, well, in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. So until then, thank you for everybody who has ever participated in this show, and we'll look forward to another 7 years right here on your favorite station. So until then, so long, everyone. Yes!
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.